first time in 41 years, Aston Villa Football Club have qualified for the Champions League under the watchful eye of the masterclass that is Unai Emery as their manager. 41 years! The last time Aston Villa were in the Champions League, it was known as the European Cup, and this is what happened. Absolutely beautiful sight to behold for any Aston Villa fan around the world. 1982 European Cup champions. But I want to know is, can Unai Emery win the current Champions League with Aston Villa Football Club? And if he can't, who can? So join me in today's experiment to see if Aston Villa can win the Champions League. So what we are going to do is we are going to jump to the end of the 23-24 season, and I will bear this in mind that the Champions League is still in the old system. So the Villa will be put into a group stage, and we'll see if they can go on to the round of 16, quarterfinals, semi-finals, and maybe just quite possibly win the Champions League. We will also look at the Premier League standings, the FA Cup, Carabao Cup, and we'll also see what transfers, if any, Unai Emery does. Let's jump to the end of the first season, shall we? So it looks like Unai Emery has guided Aston Villa to further European football for the next season, but it's not actually going to be in the Champions League, as Villa did finish in 6th in the Premier League, 1 point above Manchester United, but also 1 point behind Tottenham Hotspur and 2 points behind Chelsea, who do secure that 4th Champions League spot. So not a bad season for Aston Villa and Unai Emery. And it looks like Unai Emery and Aston Villa did actually qualify for the round of 16 in the Champions League, having the likes of Atalanta, Bayer Leverkusen and Rangers within their group, winning 3, drawing 2 and losing 1. Here were the results. So these results are not in order by date, but the Villa were able to beat Bayer Leverkusen at Villa Park. 2 goals from John McGinn and 1 goal from Kobe Moore. They were also able to beat Bayer Leverkusen 2-0 away from home. Goals from Amadou Onana and Jaden Philogene with a superb away victory. Atalanta away was a fair bit more closer, 2-1 to Aston Villa. Pau Torres and Jaden Philogene again for Aston Villa, and Skamaka picking up a goal for Atalanta before drawing at home to Rangers 0-0, as well as picking up a 1-1 draw away at Ibrox. Kieran Dowell for Rangers, but that was after Ollie Watkins had scored just after half time. And to round it up, it was a 2-0 loss to Atalanta at Villa Park. Not the best result for the Villa boys, but they move on to the round of 16. And it was Inter Milan who Aston Villa were playing in the round of 16, and a very, very nice 1-0 win at Villa Park, with Cameron Archer scoring the only goal at Villa Park, giving the Villa boys a 1-0 lead going to the San Siro, where the Villa were able to pick up a draw away from home in the San Siro. Ollie Watkins scoring just after half time, with Marko Arnautovic picking up a goal for Inter Milan. But Villa do go on to the quarterfinals, where they were playing Liverpool, and they were actually victorious at Anfield, even with Matty Cash being sent off in the 21st minute. Jacob Ramsey scoring in the 6th minute for Villa before John McGinn doubled the Villa's lead in the 27th minute before Luis Diaz scored what was probably a mere consolation goal for Liverpool. But this is where it got interesting, because it was a 1-1 draw for Aston Villa at Villa Park. Ollie Watkins from the penalty spot in the 15th minute, with Cody Gakpo scoring in the 72nd minute. 3-2 on aggregate for Aston Villa. What a result. But unfortunately, this is where it started to go downhill for Aston Villa's Champions League campaign. Jack Grealish going back to Villa Park to haunt his old club, scoring the only goal in the home leg, winning it for Manchester City. And it didn't get much better there for Villa at the Etihad Stadium, where Man City were able to steamroll over the Villa boys. Phil Foden, Bernardo Silva and Jack Grealish again securing the semi-final tie for Manchester City. Not a bad first season though in the Champions League for Unai Emery. What about the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup? I do wonder. Well, it was an early exit in the Carabao Cup for Aston Villa, losing out to Manchester United at Villa Park. Goals from Xerxes, Mason Mount and Anthony. 3 goals in 12 minutes for Manchester United. But it was John McGinn and Jacob Ramsey who managed to draw 2 goals back, but it just wasn't enough for the Villa boys. As for the FA Cup, it was a 1-0 win in the FA Cup third round to Aston Villa against Preston North End. John Duran scoring in the first minute of the game, and that's how it remained. The fourth round was another 1-0 win. Luka Jovic with the victory against Sheffield United. Not too bad. It was Bournemouth away for the Villa. Pedro scoring 2 goals in the 7th minute and the 90th minute, but this unfortunately was the end of the road for the FA Cup for Aston Villa, unfortunately, losing out to local rivals Wolverhampton Wanderers after taking an early lead. A goal from Jacob Ramsey before Sarabia scored for Wolves to equalise, in Fabio Silva scoring the deciding goal at Villa Park from the penalty spot, securing the win for the Wolves. Villa go out of the FA Cup at the quarter-final stages. Overall across this season, 27 games won, 10 games drawn and 18 games lost, leaving Unai Emery with a 49% win rate. So as for this experiment, as far as this experiment goes, it's not actually a bad start. But who will be taking over Aston Villa Football Club next to try and win them the Champions League? Well, I can tell you that it's going to be Jurgen Klopp who's going to try and win the Champions League for Aston Villa. Great success with Liverpool and Borussia Dortmund. This should be a fine fit for the villains. Let's see what happens. You could probably forgive me for believing that Jurgen Klopp could actually bring some form of success to Aston Villa Football Club, whether that may be in the league or any form of cup, especially with the attributes that he is showing right here. He did have a lot of success, as I mentioned, in Liverpool and Borussia Dortmund, but can he bring success to Villa Park? Actually, the Villa did actually finish one position above Unai Emery in comparison to his time at Villa Park. Jurgen getting the Villa boys up to 5th in the Premier League table. Quite a way away though from Arsenal, who were sitting in 4th. A whole 8 points difference between us and the Gunners, but 66 points though is still a fairly respectable points tally for Jurgen. 5 points above Tottenham Hotspur also. But the main thing though this time around is that we are again going to be playing European football in the following season. Good stuff so far. Unfortunately for Jurgen Klopp, there will be no Champions League trophy at Villa Park this season. Villa finishing in 3rd in Group F. Red Bull Leipzig finishing top after winning 3 and drawing 3. Atalanta finishing in 2nd on 9 points. But Villa finishing in 3rd, 1 win, 3 draws and 2 losses, with Galatasaray finishing in 4th. So that does put us in the Europa League. It's not all doom and gloom. 1-0 loss at home to Atalanta at Villa Park wasn't the greatest of starts for Jurgen Klopp in the Champions League, and that was followed up also by a 1-0 loss to Red Bull Leipzig. Andre Silva scoring the goal for the Red Bulls. But that was followed up also by a 1-1 draw to Galatasaray. Cameron Archer scoring in the 82nd minute after Galatasaray had originally gone 1-0 up. We did pick up a point also over in Italy against Atalanta, drawing 0-0, but we did pick up our first win in this group stage, beating Galatasaray at Villa Park 3-1, with goals from John McGinn, Ollie Watkins and Felipe Coutinho. Wilfried Zaha scoring for the Turkish side, but we did also pick up a point away from home in Germany in Leipzig, with Jadon Philogene scoring the goal in the 42nd minute. Benjamin Sesko scoring for Red Bull Leipzig. Now, we did mention that we were in the Europa League, but we did go through the playoffs where we picked up a 2-1 win at Villa Park. Cameron Archer and Jacob Ramsey picking up the goals for Aston Villa before John McGinn did get himself sent off in the 83rd minute. by where we drew 1-1 over in France against OGC Nice. Cameron Archer scoring the goal for the Villa boys, putting us into the round of 16, and that was against FC Porto from Portugal. Yusuf Yazici scoring in the 2nd minute before Leon Bailey drew the score level for the Villa boys before we went over to Portugal, and also picked up a draw over there as well. FC Porto scoring after 9 minutes, but Ollie Watkins scoring in the 53rd minute, and he was actually won on penalties. Villa scoring all 3 of their goals from Watkins, Barkley and McGinn, sending us through to the quarter-finals against fellow Portuguese outfit Sporting Lisbon, and it was a 3-3 draw in Portugal. Ramsey scoring a brace and Ollie Watkins scoring a goal of his own. 3 goals for the Villa boys before we picked up a 1-0 win against Sporting Lisbon. Watkins sending us through to the semi-finals of the Europa League, where we actually played fellow English team Manchester United. Garnacho picking up the only goal for the Devils in the 19th minute, but it was Ollie Watkins, Leon Bailey and Jacob Ramsey who scored for Villa, giving us a healthy 3-1 lead. But unfortunately, this is where it went horribly wrong, because it was Manchester United who scored 3 goals with no response from Villa. Rashford scoring 2 and Bruno Fernandes scoring the 3rd, putting Manchester United into the Europa League final against, I don't know who they were playing against, but it was heartbreak for Jurgen Klopp in Europe. 1-0 loss at home to Atalanta at Villa Park wasn't the greatest of starts for Jurgen Klopp in the Champions League, and that was followed up also by a 1-0 loss to Red Bull Leipzig. Andre Silva scoring the goal for the Red Bulls. But that was followed up also by a 1-1 draw to Galatasaray. Cameron Archer scoring in the 82nd minute after Galatasaray had originally gone 1-0 up. We did pick up a point also over in Italy against Atalanta, drawing 0-0, but we did pick up our first win in this group stage, beating Galatasaray at Villa Park 3-1, with goals from John McGinn, Ollie Watkins and Felipe Coutinho. Wilfried Zaha scoring for the Turkish side, but we did also pick up a point away from home in Germany in Leipzig, with Jadon Philogene scoring the goal in the 42nd minute. Benjamin Sesko scoring for Red Bull Leipzig. Now, we did mention that we were in the Europa League, but we did go through the playoffs where we picked up a 2-1 win at Villa Park. Cameron Archer and Jacob Ramsey picking up the goals for Aston Villa before John McGinn did get himself sent off in the 83rd minute, by where we drew 1-1 over in France against OGC Nice. Cameron Archer scoring the goal for the Villa boys, putting us into the round of 16, and that was against FC Porto from Portugal. Yusuf Yazici scoring in the 2nd minute before Leon Bailey drew the score level for the Villa boys before we went over to Portugal, and also picked up a draw over there as well. FC Porto scoring after 9 minutes, but Ollie Watkins scoring in the 53rd minute, and he was actually won on penalties. Villa scoring all 3 of their goals from Watkins, Barkley and McGinn, sending us through to the quarter-finals against fellow Portuguese outfit Sporting Lisbon, and it was a 3-3 draw in Portugal. Ramsey scoring a brace and Ollie Watkins scoring a goal of his own. 3 goals for the Villa boys before we picked up a 1-0 win against Sporting Lisbon. Watkins sending us through to the semi-finals of the Europa League, where we actually played fellow English team Manchester United. Garnacho picking up the only goal for the Devils in the 19th minute, but it was Ollie Watkins, Leon Bailey and Jacob Ramsey who scored for Villa, giving us a healthy 3-1 lead. But unfortunately, this is where it went horribly wrong, because it was Manchester United who scored 3 goals with no response from Villa. Rashford scoring 2 and Bruno Fernandes scoring the 3rd, putting Manchester United into the Europa League final against, I don't know who they were playing against, but it was heartbreak for Jurgen Klopp in Europe. For Jurgen Klopp then, it was 26 games won, 15 games drawn and 15 losses, leaving Jurgen Klopp with a 46% win rate. Yes, we got higher in the Premier League. Yes, we did get to the Europa League semi-finals, being knocked out by Manchester United, but still no Champions League trophy at Villa Park. Can manager number 3 change that possibly? And it's Pep Guardiola who is manager number 3. The man himself has won numerous titles in Germany with Bayern Munich and in England with Manchester City, but ultimately he has won the Champions League. So is Pep the man to guide the Champions League back to Villa Park? And fairly similar to Jurgen Klopp, his stats are absolutely brilliant, motivating and people management up there in the 18s, along with his judging player ability and potential, as well as his tactical knowledge, which I don't need to tell you is sublime. He does prefer a tiki-taka style of play with a 4-3-3 formation, which is his preferred way of play, with a 4-2-3-1 as his second preferred formation. So, can Guardiola win the Champions League for Aston Villa? Pep Guardiola did have a fairly solid season with Aston Villa in the Premier League, finishing on 62 points, on goal difference just above Tottenham Hotspur, but quite some way off from Chelsea, who finished in 5th. But it's another season where Aston Villa do qualify for European football next year in the Europa League. What happened with the Champions League? Was a fairly tough group in the Champions League for Aston Villa and Pep Guardiola, playing up against the likes of Real Madrid, Red Bull Leipzig and AC Milan. But interestingly, Villa actually qualify for the round of 16, beating Red Bull Leipzig to second spot, and AC Milan finishing rock bottom, only picking up 1 point across their 6 games. Villa winning 3, drawing 2 and losing 1. On to the round of 16 they go. They were quite unlucky to only pick up a draw against Real Madrid, as Matty Cash did put the Villa boys 1-0 ahead against Real Madrid, only with Endrick scoring an 86th minute equaliser. Before, it was a 1-1 draw against AC Milan. Ollie Watkins putting Villa 1-0 up before Alvaro Morata equalised for the San Siro team. Very unlucky, I must say. But it was a 3-0 win at Villa Park for the Villa against AC Milan, with AC Milan going down to 10 men. That did make a difference, so as John McGinn did put the Villa boys 1-0 ahead in the first half, before Ollie Watkins doubled the Villa to put them 2-0 up. And it was a 1-0 win at Villa Park against Red Bull Leipzig, with Watkins the only goal scorer of their game. Seems like a fairly solid performance, and we followed that up with a 2-1 away win in Leipzig, with Red Bull Leipzig actually going 1-0 up, with Danny Olmo scoring in the first 10 minutes, Pedro scoring from the penalty spot in the 68th minute for Villa, and Jaden Philogene in the 87th minute to win the game for Villa. But maybe that was a little bit too much for the Villa against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, as Rodrigo scored himself a brace 41st minute and the 84th minute. But Villa actually taking the lead against Real Madrid, which was, I would say, fairly unlucky. But the round of 16 would see Pep Guardiola play against his former side, Bayern Munich. It was Harry Kane who scored himself a hat-trick at Villa Park in front of a full house at Villa Park, 42,777, a full capacity game for the Villa boys. But I dare say it may have been a little bit too much, as Harry Kane did score himself another 2 goals for Bayern Munich, with Thomas Muller rounding off a 6-0 aggregate victory for the German side. So Villa exit the Champions League stage at the round of 16. It does seem to be quite a fairly common occurrence now that Villa are getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup at the early stages. Liverpool, the visitors to Villa Park this time around, beating Aston Villa on penalties. Jacob Ramsey getting himself a brace, but Darwin Núñez and Sabazai also getting on the score sheet. Liverpool go through on penalties, but for the FA Cup it was a little bit different. We welcomed Charlton Athletic to the Villa Park, with Philogene the only goal scorer of the game. Seems to be enough to put us through, but it was Sutton United where Villa travelled to for the fourth round. Cameron Archer scoring himself a brace before Pau Torres rounded off the win. Craig Clay did get himself on the score sheet for Sutton United. Quite a small victory for the smaller team there. As for the fifth round, it was a 2-1 win against Burnley at Villa Park. Samuel Illing and Morgan Rogers, the goal scorers. Wilson Odobert scoring for Burnley. As for the quarter-final stage, it was Watford who travelled up to Villa Park. Pau Torres, Ollie Watkins scoring in the first half, with Watford also scoring before half-time. Pedro and Matson rounding off the victory against Watford to secure a 4-1 win. As for the semi-finals, this is where it went slightly wrong. It was a 2-1 loss to Arsenal, with John McGinn scoring the only goal for Aston Villa, with Bukayo Saka and Nketiah scoring in the 81st minute at Wembley though. So this is actually the furthest I believe that we've actually got in regards to the FA Cup. So with a 48% win rate for Pep Guardiola at Aston Villa Football Club, it was 25 games, won 10 draws and 17 losses. And with the experiment focusing solely, primarily on the Champions League, we only got as far as the round of 16 before we were battered by German outfit Bayern Munich, Pep Guardiola's previous club where he managed before Manchester City. He did also guide us to a top 6 place, which guaranteed us further European football for the following season, and he did also get us to Wembley in the FA Cup semi-final against Arsenal. So you can win some, you can lose some. I think this was quite a fairly successful campaign nonetheless for Pep Guardiola at Aston Villa. Maybe manager number 4 can guide us to further Champions League glory, maybe. Manager number 4 is none other than Carlo Ancelotti, the current Real Madrid manager who has brought the team numerous league titles and trophies, but mainly the Champions League trophy. Maybe he can bring the Champions League trophy back to Aston Villa Football Club. Maybe with a wing play tactical style, this may benefit Aston Villa a bit more. With a 4-4-2 diamond narrow preferred formation, this should suit the wingers that are currently at Aston Villa, with his second preferred formation just as a basic 4-4-2. So let's find out how they did. With Carlo Ancelotti at the wheel for Aston Villa Football Club, there was a significant difference in the Premier League. The Villa Boys only able to finish 12th, quite some way off from their previous 5th and 6th place finishes on the likes of Emery, Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp. But you may have noticed that Villa did actually qualify for the Europa Conference League. We'll have a look at that in a minute, but how did Carlo Ancelotti get on in the Champions League? The good news is for Aston Villa Football Club, they did actually qualify for the round of 16, finishing in 2nd place, playing against the likes of Juventus, Celtic and FC Red Bull Salzburg from Austria. How did the results fare up? Well, it was Dennis Undav who secured the 3 points for Villa at Villa Park against Juventus. The Villa securing a 2-0 win against the Italian Giants, but that was long before it was a loss to Celtic at Celtic Park. Dennis Undav scoring in the first minutes before Celtic replied in the second half, and it didn't get much better in the return trip to Juventus for the Villa. Only Ollie Watkins able to score in a consolation penalty against Juventus, who beat us 2-1. A 0-0 draw against Red Bull Salzburg didn't seem to be any better, but a point is a point for Aston Villa, who actually went on to beat Salzburg away from home, the goal scorer being Ollie Watkins in the 34th minute. And it got very interesting in the return fixture at Villa Park against Celtic, the Villa Boys securing a revenge win against Celtic, winning 2-1. Now this is where we tripped up. because it was Real Madrid, Carlo Ancelotti's former side. Remember, he was their manager last season, coming to Villa Park, beating Villa 4-0, 2 goals from Camavinga, a goal from Kylian Mbappe and David Alaba, with Rudiger also getting sent off. Was there any turning point for Villa at the Bernabeu? Unfortunately not. Villa exit the Champions League at the round of 16 over 2 legs, being beaten quite comfortably by the Spanish giants 7-0 on aggregate. For the first time in this experiment so far, Villa do make it past the Carabao Cup third round at the expense of Swansea City, beating the Welsh outfit 4-1 away from home. Samuel Illin scoring himself 2 goals in 2 minutes, with Ollie Watkins scoring 4 minutes later. Lewis Dobbin rounding off the victory away in Swansea. As for the fourth round, it was a trip to Norwich City, Carrow Road for Villa. Ollie Watkins scoring himself a goal before Jacob Ramsey got himself a brace with a nice, comfortable 3-0 win. For the quarter-finals, it was a 2-0 win away at Manchester United. Undav scoring himself 2 goals in the first 10 minutes. A brilliant away victory at Old Trafford. And for the semi-finals, it was a trip to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Villa taking a 1-0 lead on aggregate back to Villa Park. Undav on the score sheet again. Before we went back to Villa Park, it was confirmed that we will be playing in the Carabao Cup final with a comfortable 2-0 win against Spurs. Coutinho scoring in the first half before Lewis Dobbin scored in the 90th minute. Who did we play in the Carabao Cup final? Why are we in the Europa League Conference League next season? That is because we beat Bournemouth at Wembley 3-1. Undav scoring just before half time, Ollie Watkins scoring in the 67th minute, and Sobolev scoring in the 81st minute to give Villa their first trophy, not only this season but in this experiment throughout so far. A brilliant Carabao Cup final win for Villa sees us go into the Conference League next season. What about the FA Cup, I wonder? Well, it was a 4-0 win against Leicester City in the FA Cup third round. Villa securing the win, Undav scoring 2 goals, with Matty Cash scoring in between Undav's 2, and Ollie Watkins rounding off a fantastic 4-0 victory, putting Villa into the fourth round, where they entertained Sheffield United of the Championship. Boubacar Kamara scoring in the first minute before Ollie Watkins scoring in the 79th minute. But Norwich City get their revenge. We did knock them out in the Carabao Cup fourth round. Norwich came to Villa Park, Jonathan Rowe scoring the only goal of the game, knocking a quite strong Villa side, I might actually mention, out at the 5th round. So not a bad domestic cup campaign for Carlo Ancelotti, winning the Carabao Cup final against Bournemouth, but being knocked out by Norwich in the 5th round, the furthest that we have got in the cups so far. So no Champions League trophy back at Villa Park this time around with Carlo Ancelotti as manager. Maybe in the future, quite possibly, but he is the first manager in this experiment to bring a trophy to Villa Park in the likes of the Carabao Cup. With 23 games won, 13 draws and 19 losses, it leaves Ancelotti on a 41% win rate. Not too bad when you take all things considered, being beaten comfortably by Real Madrid. But as I said, he is the first manager to bring a trophy back to Villa Park. So Xabi Alonso is Aston Villa's next candidate to try and bring the Champions League trophy to Villa Park. The manager himself going on an unbeaten run with Bayer Leverkusen in the Bundesliga. Surely he is the man to bring Champions League glory to Aston Villa Football Club. While Xabi Alonso's managerial career is at the early stages, he has made quite a significant difference whilst working with Bayer Leverkusen. He was at Real Sociedad prior to moving to Leverkusen, but his unbeaten Bundesliga run makes him a ridiculously strong candidate for this experiment. He does use a vertical tiki-taka tactical style of play with a 5-2-2-1 formation. Could this work in Aston Villa's favour, perhaps? Maybe the Premier League title race was one step too far for Xabi Alonso, as he only manages to guide Aston Villa Football Club to 10th place, 12 points behind any form of European qualification, behind Tottenham Hotspur, who finished in 7th place. Weren't able to progress through to the round of 16, only managing to finish 3rd in a group that consisted of Barcelona, Inter Milan and FC Midtjylland from Denmark. But Europa League may be a more suitable trophy for Aston Villa to try and win, perhaps. But Taremi scored Inter Milan's equaliser in the 75th minute. From there on out, we do go over to Barcelona, only losing 1-0, so it's not actually a bad result. Again, you're playing up against the likes of Barcelona, only lose 1-0. It's not too bad, you take the positives from it. But a positive for Aston Villa is a 2-1 away win in Denmark against FC Midtjylland. Jacob Ramsey and Ollie Watkins getting themselves on the score sheet before we were able to thump the Danish outfits 3-0 at Villa Park. Coutinho getting on the score sheet in just like 2 minutes before Jacob Ramsey scores himself 2 goals in the 24th and 43rd minutes before going in at half-time 3-0. Over in Inter Milan, though, it was a 2-0 loss against the Italian giants. Martinez and Fratesi scoring the goals, 1 goal either side of half-time for Inter Milan, before we round off our Champions League campaign with a 1-0 loss against Barcelona at Villa Park. But as I did mention, we do qualify for the Europa League playoffs, where we were up against Slavia Prague. A 2-0 home win, goals from Ollie Watkins and Pau Torres, giving us a healthy aggregate score going over to Prague, where we're able to thump the Prague outfit 3-2. Diego Carlos, Matty Cash and Yuri Tillemans scoring the deciding goals for Aston Villa, putting us through to the round of 16. However, we were only able to draw 0-0 to AS Roma, even though Evan Ndika did get sent off in the 73rd minute. Villa were not able to capitalise on having the man advantage, and that would cost them in the away leg, where again AS Roma do go down to 10 men early in the second half before they actually scored the deciding goal that puts AS Roma into the quarterfinals and knocks Aston Villa out. Once again, we are knocked out of Europe. We'll win for Villa against Millwall, so as progress through to the 4th round of the Carabao Cup for the 2nd time in a row in this experiment. Archer and Coutinho get themselves on the score sheet. As for the 4th round, it was quite a close encounter with Watford. Matty Cash scoring in the 9th minute before Watford respond in the second half in the 79th minute. But there is Cameron Archer again in the 85th minute, who push Villa through to the quarterfinals, and this is where we say goodbye to the Carabao Cup. However, because we are knocked out by Arsenal in the quarterfinal stages, losing out on penalties at the Emirates. As for the FA Cup, it was quite a nice little derby win for the Villa. 2 goals apiece for Jacob Ramsey and Cameron Archer against West Bromwich Albion see us go through to the 5th round of the FA Cup. But like in the Carabao Cup, we are knocked out by Bournemouth on penalties this time around, with Boubacar Kamara being sent off for the Villa. But Ollie Watkins opening the goal scoring for Villa in the 28th minute before Bournemouth respond. So not the greatest of seasons for Xabi Alonso, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. No Champions League trophy for Xabi Alonso and Aston Villa Football Club. Xabi only managed to pick 23 wins for the Villa boys, leaving with a 42% win rate, 11 draws and 20 losses overall this season. So maybe in a year or 2 or 5, if Xabi Alonso is still at Villa, the Champions League trophy may be coming to Villa Park. But now it is time to go from one of the youngest managers in this experiment to one of the greatest managers that we have seen. I am talking about Zinedine Zidane. do I really need to give this man an introduction? We all know what a fantastic successful manager this man has been. Not just a successful manager, but a fantastic footballer in his playing days. Let's go and see what Zidane can actually do for Aston Villa. I can only imagine what this man is about to do for the club. 3-time Champions League winners with Real Madrid. Zinedine Zidane is surely the man to bring the Champions League back to Villa Park. Zinedine will be the final manager that we are looking at. I just hope and pray that we are able to see Champions League success at Villa Park. Already you can see the effect that Zinedine Zidane has had with Aston Villa. The Villa falling 1 point shy of the Premier League title. Manchester City winning the league on 83 points, with the Villa finishing in second place. I tell you what, I was not expecting that. What a season for Zidane and Aston Villa. And it seems that the Zidane effect is also following through with the Champions League. The Villa finishing top of their group, 4 points above Red Bull Leipzig, along with AS Monaco and Atalanta. Villa winning 4 games, drawing 1 and losing 1. What about those results? 1 win over Atalanta in Italy was the perfect start for Aston Villa Football Club. Iliana Buendia, Ollie Watkins and Felipe Coutinho getting on the score sheet for the Villa boys, with Coop Miners following up with what appears to be a mere consolation. That was followed up with a 0-0 draw over in Monaco. So we mentioned about the 4 wins and 1 draw and 1 loss. This was the only draw in Group D for the Villa boys, which was followed up with a 2-1 win against Red Bull Leipzig. Buendia and Leon Bailey getting on the score sheet, and it does appear that Amadou Onana did pick up an injury in that game as well. But whereas we drew over in Monaco, we were able to beat AS Monaco at Villa Park. Yuri Tillemans and Ollie Watkins scoring both goals in the first half for Villa, and that 1 loss did come up against Red Bull Leipzig. Openda and Chesko scoring goals for the German outfit, whilst Leon Bailey did actually put Villa 1-0 up in the first half. 2 goals coming in the first half before Chesko won it for Leipzig. But we do round off the group stage with a 2-1 win over Atalanta, both goals being scored one either side of first half. Matty Cash in the 44th minute and Cameron Archer scoring in the 65th minute. Danny Marta did score a consolation goal for Atalanta. But this is where it gets interesting, because this is now the round of 16, and it does appear that we were absolutely battered over in Barcelona. Firmin Lewandowski and Ansu Fati with a brace for Barcelona. 3 goals coming in the first half, an absolutely disastrous first leg for Villa. However, I did say it was interesting, and this is why. Because it was the Villa who actually beat Barcelona at Villa Park 4 goals to 0. They took it to penalties against Barcelona, where they lost 4-3. Ezri Konsa and Ollie Watkins missing the first 2 penalties against Barcelona, with Lewandowski scoring Barcelona's first before IK Gundogan did miss Barcelona's second. Bailey, Pedro and Ross Barkley did score for the Villa from the penalty spot, but it doesn't matter, as Pedri, Ferran Torres and Andreas Christensen sent Barcelona through to the quarter-finals. I tell you something, to come back from 4-0 down at Barcelona to win 4-0 at Villa Park, only to go out on penalties, that is very, very unlucky for the Villa boys. Now, while Zinedine Zidane was working his magic in the Champions League for the Villa, it was a 1-0 loss against Middlesbrough away from home at the Riverside Stadium in the Carabao Cup 3rd round. So an early exit for the Villa boys in the Carabao Cup. However, in the FA Cup, it was a rather comfortable 3-0 win against local rivals Wolverhampton Wanderers. John McGinn, Leon Bailey and Ollie Watkins getting on the score sheet for Villa in the FA Cup 3rd round. For the 4th round, it was a rather comfortable 2-0 win, even though Ian Maatsen did get sent off for Aston Villa in the 84th minute. 2 goals for Villa. Ollie Watkins getting on the score sheet in the 13th minute, whilst Jacob Ramsey doubled Aston Villa's advantage in the 50th minute. Gabriel Sara did get sent off for the Canaries before Maatsen got himself sent off. Both teams finishing the game with 10 men. For the 5th round of the FA Cup, it was a 2-1 win against AFC Bournemouth away from home. Villa putting themselves 1-0 ahead through Samuel Illing in the 7th minute before Bournemouth did reply in the 17th minute, 10 minutes after Illing had opened up the score for Villa, before Ollie Watkins scored the deciding goal for Aston Villa, sending them through to the quarter-finals where they were victorious against Chelsea. Ollie Watkins scoring another goal for Villa in the 7th minute before Alex Moreno, 6 minutes after half-time, doubling Villa's advantage, putting them 2-0 up before Nicholas Jackson did score a goal for Chelsea in the 76th minute. Villa are through to the semi-finals where they were 3-0 winners against the Saints. Southampton at Wembley, Onana scoring in the first minute, Buendia scoring just before half-time, and then John Arias scoring 3 minutes after the break. He puts Villa into the FA Cup final, but it does come at quite a price where Ezri Konsa, Leon Bailey and John Arias do get themselves injured. Does that have an effect on the Cup final? Yes, it does, because Villa do lose out to the Premier League title winners 2-1 at Wembley in the FA Cup final. John McGinn does put Villa 1-0 up in the 18th minute before Matheus Nunes does equalise for Manchester City, and heartbreak for those Villa fans as Jonathan David scores the winner 7 minutes from time, 83rd minute. Absolute devastation for Villa, but I tell you something, Zinedine Zidane has done wonders this season and you cannot deny it. So whilst there was no Champions League success for the Villa this time around again, you really can't deny the impact that Zinedine Zidane has had for this club, leaving Aston Villa after one season in second place in the Premier League, only losing out by 1 point to the title holders Manchester City, losing out to Barcelona on penalties as well in the round of 16 after being 4-0 down away from home to bring that back to 4-4 on aggregate, only to lose out on penalties. Absolutely devastating for those fans. And also we have to mention the FA Cup final loss to Manchester City as well. We were 1-0 up with John McGinn scoring, but Man City doing what Man City do best and scoring goals. So with a 66% win rate, 35 games won, 8 games drawn and 10 games lost, I'll probably say that Zidane has had quite a successful season, an unlucky one, but a successful one nonetheless. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we bring the experiment to a close. However, what I will say is that if you'd like to see some other managers taking over Aston Villa Football Club to see if they can do any better to try and win the Champions League, or even win a domestic cup, the Premier League title maybe, the Carabao Cup, the FA Cup, let me know who you think would succeed at Villa Park. If you've liked the video, then hit that like button, drop me a comment in the comment section. If you haven't done so already, click on that subscribe button. It's been a real pleasure to run this video. Thank you very much guys for watching, and I'll see you all soon.